What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and it's time to do another Godzilla X Kong the New Empire figure unboxing. In this one we will be checking out the Giant Shimo. This figure was actually kind of a hard one to track down. I don't know what's up with it. I don't know if it just wasn't produced very heavily or if there's a supply shortage or what the issue is with this guy, but this was a hard one to find. Thankfully, I almost bought this thing for $60 before coming to my senses that it just isn't worth that. It just isn't. Thankfully, I didn't do that because the very next day I saw this thing pop up on Amazon for $22, so I snagged it for $22. That's like how it should be. It's double the price of the small one. That's good stuff. But that's right, we're going to be checking out the Giant Shimo from Playmates. This is one I am rather excited for because I love the giant figures. It would be the stuff that I loved as a kid, especially when they had articulation like these ones. As always, I love the Godzilla Kong packaging, love the purple aesthetic, good Shimo on the back there. I like that Shimo font they use, that's pretty cool, made out of crystals, that's dope. And yeah, like I said, good Shimo render. Alright, here's the bad boy out of the packaging. Nice stuff here. Comes with the tail. The tail is detached from the rip. This is just an enlarged version of the smaller Shimo. So theoretically it should work similar, and the tail is in that same crooked pose. Oh, that was so easy. Went in so freaking easy. Yeah, there you go. It's like nearly identical to the small one. I'm noticing though, my camera is making it look a lot darker blue. In person, the Shimo is a little more purple than my camera's picking up. So just know that. And that's actually a good thing. If you're familiar with the Playmates Godzilla products, this thing should be no surprise to you. The pitfalls of this are the same as the small one. The sculpt is the same sculpt as the 6-inch Shimo, and so it has all of the same flaws and ahs of that one. Giant Shimo's head looks pretty good, and now that I've seen Godzilla Kong the New Empire, I can weigh in on the accuracy of it, and generally speaking, I actually think they did a pretty good job with this. Of course, they could have used different things, like I think Shimo needs a stronger eyebrow and a much different nose design. Other than that though, generally speaking, Shimo's a very simple design, so they pretty much nail it here. The head and neck of Shimo look particularly good, especially the head, because the head is a bit of a softer plastic, more close to rubber than the rest of the body. The hard plastic begins on the neck, but looks pretty solid, especially on the front of the neck where they've got some good scaling patterns. On the side of the body, they've done an okay job, specifically on the top here, like the rigid part. The scales on the underneath are pretty good, but they have sacrificed a lot of the depth to give Shimo some mobility. See how I can run the arm in that complete circle there? Mine rattles for some reason. There's something loose inside. I don't know what that is. Seems to be in this hand. But you can move the arm in a full circle here, and the reason you can do that is because they've sacrificed a lot of the detailing. They've smoothed Shimo out so that you could accomplish that. Because this is the larger figure and not the smaller one, I would have preferred more depth in the sculpt. I do think that's a little lazy to straight up reuse the small one. The tailpiece looks pretty good from the top. They've done a good job with Shimo's spines, especially on the tip of the tail. That's such a cool design. I really love the tip of Shimo's tail. It's one of the cooler kaiju tails we've seen. The bottom of Shimo is pretty solid too. I really like the scale textures all over the bottom. It gets a little too unrendered on the belly. I don't love that, especially in the upper chest. It's just like nothing, but they've done a good job in some areas. One thing that always bugs me about these Playmates ones is that when you flip over the big ones, there's these giant screw holes that are revealed. I don't understand why when you have bigger toys like this, the screw holes have to be showing. It'd be very easy to create a small plug that would go over those. I don't know why they don't. The arms look okay. Like I said, they are a little unrendered, probably for the mobility. They've got good scaling. The feet look really good, especially because they're the rubbery textures, which Playmates always does a little bit better of job with. The inside of the arms doesn't look great though. And then the same can be said for the legs, where generally speaking they look pretty solid. They've got good enough texturing and scales on the front and side, but the insides of the legs is a little smooth, and then the feet look pretty good. As for the paint job, I think they do actually a pretty good job with Shimo after seeing the movie. There's not a ton more that you could do with a a lower-end children's toy without raising the price because you're putting too much detail into it. I think the translucent purple spines look fantastic, especially because they can capture light in different ways to look a little blue. I'm sure that there's probably ways to get them to light up so that they look a little pinkish like they do in the movie. Shimo's spines in the movie just have these really vibrant colors in them. I really like that. These blues and purples and pinks. It's really cool. The tail's painted pretty nicely with the blue. They kind of do the thing where the blue bleeds onto the tail almost as if Shimo's charged up here, which is neat. I do like that the gradient carries over onto the bottom of the tail and then kind of fades out. That's nice. There is some paint chipping on mine. Some of Shimo's tail spines are chipped. I like the purple on the neck and on the crown Shimo has. That's dope. The white looks pretty good overall. Shimo is purely white in the movie, so there's not much more you can do with that. The eyes look good. They're nice little blue dots. That's pretty good. The teeth are yellow, which look nice. They contrast with the white body. And then that pink tongue really shines, especially on this larger figure where you have more room to look at it. The only thing that I think they could have done better is maybe, I just don't think Playmates would put in the quality for that, painting some of the ridges on the neck purple, because of course Shimo does have some purple spines on her neck in the movie. Other than that, Shimo is such a simple design that it's kind of hard to not get it right. As far as articulation goes, her mouth can open a little bit, which is nice. It can open and close. The neck can look all around. The neck has a really nice range of motion, which I really appreciate. She can look pretty high up, pretty far down, and then she can look to the sides, which is really cool, and basically she can look behind her, which is neat. Not a lot of these Playmates figures can do that. The arms can do full rotations. The legs can kick back pretty far, but they can't kick forward as far. And then the tail you've got a full 360 rotation with. And then the hands and feet can turn as well. Unfortunately though, they do have those giant gaping holes in the bottom of them, which always look ugly. In total, I count 11 points of articulation, which I think is pretty decent for one of these, especially because Shimo's more of a Godzilla-like design rather than a Kong-like design. So where Playmates really knocks it out of the park with articulation for the Kong-like designs, this is pretty solid for their Godzilla style. Stacking up next to the little Shimo here, the little one is a brighter white, and now that I'm having the two of them next to each other, I will say they actually have added increased depth on the larger Shimo design, specifically in the shoulder area, whereas the smaller one has those areas sacrificed so that the articulation can move a little better. So you know what? Actually, shout out to them for doing that. I would have preferred more, but I actually really appreciate that they did make the change. That's something, obviously I didn't realize they had done that, but now that I'm having the two of them out together, I really like that. The smaller one's scale patterns, specifically on the arms, legs, and tail, do look better, but they do look really nice next to each other. Would have been cool if the big one came with a frostbite beam as well, but I do think that these two figures are pretty awesome, and I do think they do capture their markets very well. Getting into Shimo's territory here, here's the Playmates Giant Skar King. I'm worried that if I have like any of these characters interact with Shimo's body, like if I have Skar King ride on Shimo, that the paint will chip off on her. My Shimo fresh out of the packaging does have some paint chips on it already, from where I'm assuming it's rubbed up against the box, so it's not great. But there's the two of them next to each other, and they look great next to each other. I love having a Shimo in the scale of these other guys. I don't know why it took so long to come out with one, but I'm so glad they did, because that does look awesome. And potential paint risk aside, Skar King looks pretty dope riding Shimo. This is one of the cooler visuals Adam Wingard came up with for this new movie, was having a kaiju ride another kaiju into battle. That's epic, man. If only they had a giant axe for Skar King to carry into battle as well. But yeah, they look great. Here's Shimo's nemesis turned owner, Kong. He can give her little chin scratchies and she can be happy and do little tricks for him. Maybe he'll even find some treats to give her in the next movie because she's essentially his dog now. There's the two of them next to each other. I wish Shimo was just a little larger because, of course, Kong should not be this big compared to Shimo. But I don't expect them to make Shimo wildly out of scale just so that she could pair with Kong realistically to how she was in the movie. These do look pretty awesome next to each other. I don't think they look nearly as cool as the Skar King and Shimo did, but they do look pretty neat next to each other. And then finally, the king of the monsters, who, did you notice, for some reason tries to pick a fight with every single female Titan in the new Empire? Other than Mothra, of course, the mommy of his girlfriend. Other than that, he's be brutalizing every female he meets. Kinda sus, Godzilla. Either way, here's Godzilla, the king of the monsters, versus Shimo, and these two, I think, match up great next to each other. They've got the translucent spine and the translucent crystals. That looks great. Red versus blue is a cool contrast. I have a feeling that's one of the reasons that they made Godzilla on the redder side. In the movie, he's much more pink than the toy is, but I think that's probably one of the reasons they did that, was so they would contrast really well with Shimo. And then you've got a darker skinned bluish grayish Godzilla versus a pure white Shimo, so big contrast there. And these two obviously have like similar physiques now. Godzilla's kind of adapted to look a little more Shimo, and they can really go at it. Good stuff, man. Shimo could just huck him around like she does in the movie. I wish these two had a more extended fight. I would have loved to see the two of them really go at it, because Shimo looks like she could be an all-time Godzilla villain. Very classic, very Anguirus. That would have been so much fun if we got to see a proper extended battle between the two of them, rather than just little snippets of them fighting amongst a larger action sequence. But they look awesome next to each other. Again, Shimo could be a little larger, but what are you gonna do? And that is the Playmate's Giant Shimo. Fairly decent sculpt. I respect the changes they made from the smaller one to the bigger one. The articulation is the same as the smaller one, but I actually think it's really good for one of these Playmates Godzilla toys. The paint job's about as good as you could possibly get with this toy, without running it out of its market. So I really like this. Good job, Playmates. I will give the Giant Shimo a 9 out of 10. I really can't think of much more you could do with a Playmate's Giant Shimo. So on a Playmate scale for Shimo, I'm gonna give this guy a 9 out of 10. I think they did a really good job with her. What do you think about Shimo? Do you have the Giant Shimo? Comment below and let me know. I'd love to hear what you think of it, and hopefully you didn't have to overpay for it, because it's definitely not worth 60 bucks. Also, what do you think of Shimo in the New Empire? Do you think they used her well? I would have liked to see a little more of her. I think she was a great concept with not as cool of execution as the concept was. I would have liked more of her. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to check out the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below. By supporting the Patreon, that is the most direct way to support this channel and to make sure that I can continue to make videos like this for you. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man out.